Hello, everybody. It's Donna Cravata, and we're back for another Real 50 Over 50 interview. And today is a very special day. I have been waiting to interview this incredible woman. Her name is Janine Vanderburg, and she is an award winning 3-time entrepreneur and a nationally recognized expert on ageism and age inclusion. Her work has mostly lived in the corporate and public policy worlds, but and over 3 decades, she has built the Encore roadmap. She has flipped the script on how we talk about age. She has slayed the ageism dragons and is a leader in the space of intergenerational relationships at work. And now, drum roll, please. Janine is launching something new. It's a podcast and an accompanying Substack publication called Build Your Own Boat, where she is going to help women in midlife and beyond build something entirely their own. And she's got an incredible story about how this came about, which we will talk about today. But her work so perfectly aligns with my concept that you don't need to burn down the ships, you need to call in the fleet. And I am so incredibly honored to be one of the women in her boats and delighted to chat with her today and introduce her to you. So if you've got questions, comments, put them in the chat if you're here live. If not, come back on the replay, just tag us and we'll come back and keep the conversation going. But we have so much to talk about. And so we're both so incredibly passionate about creating opportunities for women to really make the right connections, to really own who they are and not give up because the world is telling them they're too old.
Donna, I am so glad to be here, and I was thrilled when I was able to interview you and discover you had not just built a boat, you had built a fleet. So you have that fleet ready to come and rescue you if needed, or rescue others, I think is much more likely. So thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited. So let's start with the story of how the build your own boat came about.
Yeah, so there are several layers to this, but I'll tell the most recent version. I was writing an article about entrepreneurship for people midlife and beyond. And because we know we're in a very ageist job market and a lot of people need to look at something else. And so I entered into 5 different AI generators the prompt, give me the picture of an entrepreneur in a coffee shop. And all 5 image generators generated young man, hoodie, laptop. And I just remember looking back and thinking, okay, what is up with this? And I ended up telling this story at a women's conference in November and saying, we're missing from this conversation. And then without thinking about it, I just declared, and I'm going to tell the story of women who've started entrepreneurial ventures in midlife and beyond. And then applause, applause. I walk off the stage. And then for the next 2 days of the conference, I am literally swarmed by women who are saying, that's me. I started at age 50. I just started, and that kind of thing. And I realized that there are so many women in this position, but we're missing when people talk writ large about entrepreneurship.
Mhm.
And so I thought, well, I'm a 3-time entrepreneur. I've done 2 of these in midlife and beyond. I'm going to tell these stories. So that's how Build Your Own Boat came about.
Yeah, and I have been like sharing these stories for over 3 years now on this live stream, and consistently what people don't want to reinvent anything. They want their own stories. They don't want to be somebody else. They want to reclaim the parts of themselves that they put aside for one reason or another and do something impactful with it. They want to make a difference. And when I saw what you were doing, I was like, oh my goodness. she was she was in this room with me.
Well, Donna, what I find so compelling about the work we both do is I've long said when I talk to employers about why they should consider the benefits of older workers in intergenerational teams, I've talked a lot about experience is our edge. And I also realize as I've been talking with women entrepreneurs, experience does become, in a way, our unfair advantage. The things that we've brought we don't need to reinvent something totally new. There are things that we've brought, and what I love in all the stories that I'm telling on Build Your Own Boat is I'm asking women specifically, how did you draw on experiences, even if they look somewhat different, to start something new? And it's fascinating to me. One of the women whose stories I'm going to be sharing, along with yours tomorrow, is that of Lydia Romero, who had founded a national nonprofit that basically worked with all major corporations to help keep their entry-level employees on board, and provided a variety of kind of supportive services to help them with typical obstacles to employment. But when she decided to start a cookie company based on her family's Mexican cookie recipe, she was able to draw on that understanding of how corporate partnerships work. She had been the CEO of this large nonprofit, and she was able to take this to generate this business. And every story of every woman that I've interviewed so far has a similar kind of thing. They're pulling from something they've done before, they're just using it in a different way. So
Yeah.
it's fascinating.
Now, did you notice in these conversations that it took them a while to start to pull those things in?
I think it really depended on the woman. Some people figured it out right away, and they knew going into, I'm I was doing this, and now I'm gonna do this, and here's what I'm going to. And I think for others, it took a while to kind of figure out, "Oh, wow, I'm really not doing something really different. I'm applying what I did before, but in a very different way or in a different market," or that kind of thing. So I think it really depends, and I think that's what's so impactful, Donna, about the work that you do of realizing that, we are not reinventing, we're reclaiming, we're really understanding who we are, and I think that concept just needs to be shouted out loud and proud everywhere.
It really does, and I think there's a gap, and this is probably something that you can help with a lot in your work. Maybe you already are, but, like, I know when I left my job 20 years ago, I had no idea what skills I had that were transferable into what I was, was trying to build. And it took me a long time to figure out that I knew how to do all of these things that I needed to do to build my own business, to help other people build theirs. And just, really, having some kind of framework around what skills are transferable from a corporate environment into an entrepreneurial venture is something that I think would be incredibly helpful.
So I think that's helpful, and I also think that as women, we have this other thing going on. We always feel like we need one more certification, one more credential, one more thing, right?
Not good
We
enough.
we can't just go do it, right? And I know that I have had some women in the course that I do on leveraging your insights, connection, and experience into a thriving consulting practice, because I ran a consulting company for 30 years. And there were women in there who absolutely could get started tomorrow. And it's like, well, maybe I just need to get a
Yeah.
project management certification first, or maybe I need to do this. And I'm like, no, you've got it. You can do it, and that kind of thing. And so, but I do think that's a probably very much linked to that statistic that's always thrown around that, you know, um, guys will apply for a job if they meet 10% of the qualifications, and women, even if they're meeting 90, they're like, "Oh, what about that other 10%?"
Yeah,
I don't
everybody
know
that's
why we do I
that's
don't know
what
why we do that
everybody's
to
gonna see.
right? I don't know why we do that to ourselves, but we do. But
Uh-huh.
that is what I'm hoping, in a very similar way that the Real 50 Over 50 does, what I'm hoping that Build Your Own Boat does,
Mhm,
by telling the stories of women who
mhm,
have done it, who have I have a little, quote sign, up in my office that I'm looking at right now that says, "Start before you're ready." And
mm,
sometimes you just need to start and see, how the market will react. And so I'm encouraging women to tell those stories of when they started before they were ready,
mhm.
hopefully to inspire more of us to do just that.
Yeah, I love that. That's such an important message because we just tie ourselves in knots with the things that nobody's looking at but us, to be perfectly honest. And like one of the things that I did when I was launching my Substack was I took transcripts of 145 interviews and 18 panels, and I uploaded them into Google Notebook LM, and I
Yeah.
started asking questions.
Yeah.
So I asked how many topics we spoke about, and it was 357 topics.
But
And
who's
then I
counting?
asked, oh yeah, who's counting? I don't have that many toes. And then I asked what were the top 10. And the first one was reclaiming and remembering.
Yeah.
But it's not the first thing that comes up when you start to talk about, midlife and beyond.
Right.
They talk about reinvention.
Why is that, do you think?
I have some very definitive ideas about this.
You want to share them, I'm sure.
I,
I'd love to hear it.
I
I
think
would
it's
love to hear it, Donna.
I think it's a construct to keep us small, to
Mhm.
keep us feeling bad about ourselves, to keep us
Yeah.
in a space of imposter syndrome, because it makes us feel that we have to become something else or someone else to do something new. And nothing could be further from the truth. I have the actual receipts. And
You've got proof, you've got proof, yeah.
yeah, and you know what? We don't want to be somebody else. We want to be more of who we have spent
Right.
years becoming. And I think that that's a societal structure that is perpetuated through organizations and through marketing and through advertising to
Mhm.
keep us, in our place. I don't want to be in my place.
Yeah.
I want
Well,
to be in my place.
you wanna be in the places you want to be in. Well, and I think this goes another really interesting topic, that is, coming up in the build your own boat conversations are things like pricing, right? And how very often, women start to undervalue themselves and what they do, how, many are more susceptible to when a potential client says, "Well, I'll give you the exposure, right, if you do this for free," and it's kind of like, "No, actually, I'm going to charge you for that," and that kind of thing, so, a lot of our podcast episodes and the Substack stories are gonna be talking about valuing ourselves, about pricing, how we go about it, um, and how we really focus on the value that we're providing someone, and I think we really but to do that, right, we need to understand the value that we have, right? So it starts with us. A number of women I've asked, "What's the advice that you're giving to the woman who is sitting at the kitchen table thinking that, 'Should I do this or not? Should I make this step?'" And so many women that I've interviewed so far said, "People really need to start with themselves, right? You've gotta kind of figure out what are those things that I really wanna do, that I am really good at,
Yeah.
and also, the third part that the market will actually pay for, right? I discovered in one of my entrepreneurial journeys that I was really, really good at, fabricating wall hangings and blankets out of recycled cashmere.
Mhm.
I did this massive project around it. I got in a juried art show. But then I discovered that even though I sold all of my inventory by noon, it wasn't enough to make a monthly mortgage payment. So I was good at it and I loved doing it, but it was not going to drive my economic engine. So I think, part of what we've all got to figure out is what's that intersection of it. But it starts with valuing what we bring and what we love.
100%. A lot of the work that I do with clients is taking them through what they already have because
Yeah.
always in such a rush to what's new, what's next, what do I have to create, what's the fastest way I can get there, and I just hold up the stop sign and say, let's see what you already got. And just going through that process alone builds such
Yeah.
incredible self-value because the thing that you think that you can't do or that you're questioning yourself about or thinking, "Oh, I have to be somebody else to do this," you now realize, "I did this. Of course,
Yeah.
I could do the next thing."
And then the question becomes, do I want to do it or not? But,
Exactly.
can we
That's a
do
whole
it?
that's a whole different
That's a
conversation.
whole different thing,
That's
right?
a choice, not a devaluation of yourself.
Right, right.
Oh my
Totally.
God, I'm so excited. And so tell me more about some of the women that you're interviewing in
Well,
this.
let me tell you, so I'm doing this in, I think, a somewhat unusual way for a podcast. Most people just start a podcast and like interview at a reasonable pace, one person per week and that kind of thing, and issue the podcast. And I really wanted to get a sense of the bigger picture and what women were thinking, kind of like you uploading all of your interviews into the Notebook LM. The last few months, I've done 40 interviews. And from that, I kind of discerned some patterns and, here were the big picture things. So now I'm at the editing and release period. And so tomorrow I'm releasing 5, including yours. And again, all over the map. So we have Lydia Romero, who goes from being CEO of a national nonprofit to running basically a cookie company, but
Mhm.
in a corporate gifts model, right? Not selling individual package of cookies. Um, Colleen Paulson of Ageless Careers, which many people on LinkedIn are familiar with, who left background big companies engineering job and becomes, in her words, a resume writer, although she does so much more, right? And is kind of one of the premier people on LinkedIn that is coaching executives on and older executives on how to deal with this job market. Cami Gildner, who was my own business coach a few years ago. Um, Polly Allen, who was the woman behind Amazon Alexa, got totally burned out in that environment and has, left Amazon and started 2 AI companies, including an AI company that is doing workshops on how any of us can learn how to vibe code, different kind of things, using software that's now available or AI platforms that are now available to create these assets that we can continue to sell, right? And so just to me, what's fascinating is not only the range of things that people have come from, but also the range of things that people have gone into. One of my favorite stories, and I'll be releasing this one shortly, is Melissa Davey, who at age 65, and Melissa at age 65
Mhm.
literally has this moment that I think, probably many of us have had of saying, "Oh, is this all there is?" And then leaves her highly successful, highly paid position and decides to become a filmmaker, has never made a film, never whatever, and then ends up with 2 award-winning films that have been through all the circuits of the film
She's
festivals.
brilliant, yeah. I
Yeah,
interviewed her a couple months ago.
yeah, no, she's fabulous, right? And so, I just think that women are out there doing really interesting things, and the other thing that I wanna tell is that you don't have to have been this, high-powered person. I think too often we have the high-powered person goes to another high-powered that, any woman anytime can just look at the assets that she has and to your point, the experiences and the insight you've already have and build something out of it, right? Um,
Mhm.
and so that's kind of those are the stories I wanna tell, but I wanna talk a little bit more about why this is important to me as well. Um, so the AI image generator kind of generated the build your own boat. I
Mhm.
But one of the things that I realized that I'd seen throughout my lifetime was the economic insecurity that many women find themselves into, right? Women of my generation paid less over a lifetime, more likely to have been stepped out of the workforce, caregive for children, caregive for older family members. And I remember this other moment a few years ago when I was doing a workshop for the National Anti-Ageism Initiative, changing the narrative that I was running. And I'm doing this workshop and I see these women literally taking the refreshments and putting them in tote bags as they're leaving. And part of me was like, oh, great, I don't have to clean up after lunch. This is lovely. And then part of me is like, what's going on here? And I sit down and, women who had they had worked all their lives. They had done things, but they were living on tiny amounts of Social Security. They didn't have savings. And later that year, a podcaster asked me, because I talk so much about age inclusion in the workplace, he asked me, "So tell me about when you experienced ageism in the workplace." And I had to pause and realize that I was like, "Well, I never have. I've always been self-employed." So the only person that would have been ageist would have been myself, looking at myself in the mirror and saying, "Janine, you're gonna stop doing that." And of course, I was not gonna do that. And I realized, like, how entrepreneurship really had protected me in some way
Mm.
from the economic insecurity that so many women face as we get older. And it I think it's added additional momentum to my desire to do this project. So,
Yeah, it's amazing. I worked in law firms, and I left 20 years ago to start my own thing, and it was primarily because I'm a single parent and I needed to be
yeah,
closer to home. But I just spoke with somebody that I worked with who has worked there for 30 years, and they had a merger last year, and she lost her job. She's 64 years old, and she is in such a total panic.
yeah,
And I'm helping her now because, like, I know exactly what she did. I worked with her. Like, we were hip to hip. We traveled all over the world together,
yeah,
and she only sees one small window for herself. She
yeah.
doesn't realize, like, how much opportunity there really is for her, and I hope she's listening right now. I sent her the link, but
Okay, good. Yeah,
but there really is she's brilliant. She's absolutely brilliant, and from being there for so long, they've had her so pigeonholed into this
right,
role that she outgrew 30 years ago.
right. And
And
so what you're saying to me is so important because the other thing that I've seen, and I'm seeing this in the conversation, but I've seen this before, is that when women are in a role in a long time and in corporate and they're seen a certain way, that becomes a mirror and it's how they start to see themselves. And so for those of us who've been doing things on our own, we didn't have those kind of guardrails around us. I can wake up any morning and say, and today I'm going to be this. Like just like in November, I decided, oh, I'm going to be a podcaster. What do I need
yeah, and you know
to
what? You
figure
could
it out?
change
Right?
your mind at 11 o'clock in the morning, and by, like,
Exactly.
3 PM, have something totally else
Exactly.
to
But
do.
I think that's like, so one of the really important things I think that, you're doing and efforts like ours are doing is letting people say, you don't need to have those guardrails.
Yeah.
You can start, and it's hard. I don't want to minimize that because it's hard. If you've had people telling you you're in this lane this whole time, it's hard to picture yourself over here, right? But I also know that it's possible. I've seen it's possible, and I've seen women do it again and again. And those are, the stories that I want to elevate
Mhm,
because I want other women to see themselves and realize if you're in a situation like that, whether you've been kind of pushed out, laid off, victim of a merger, whatever it is, there are other possibilities out there. And sometimes you don't need to wait for that merger to occur. You can just, say, you know what?
I'm
I've
done.
done that. I'm done. It's time to go. Time to go on my terms and build my own boat.
I mean, every time I sit down to do one of these interviews, I take 5 minutes before and just take a deep breath, sometimes take a walk outside, and I just say out loud, I don't know who's hearing it, but I just say, "I hope this lands exactly where it needs to land." And if
Yeah,
one person, if something is said on this conversation that lands at the feet of the one person that needs to hear it, my work here is done.
that's except your work isn't done. You need
No,
to
it's never done.
keep preaching, sister, as long as you can, because
No, I'm not stopping.
your message is too important. Your message is too important. You need
It's
to
not my
keep
message. I'm the vehicle. There's so many stories to share. And one of the things that I'm gonna be doing on my Substack, um, is I'm gonna be, um, doing a campaign, sharing sound bites from all of the interviews, and I don't have the exact name yet. I'm still playing with it, but it's instead of sharing quotes of people that don't need the visibility, share quotes of the women we know, share the words of the women we know. And, it's just gonna be sound bites from all of these interviews and just
Donna, that's so important because and then that, dispels, like, you don't need to be, like, the big name to do this, like,
yeah,
anyone can do it, and we can make good livings at it, we can take care of our families with it, we can, stashed away some retirement income for it. Those who are planning to retire, I never am, and, you know,
Yeah.
stash away travel money, whatever it is that,
And just being realistic too. Like, what do you need? I mean, I think, that what goes with that AI graphic of the marketing man bro in a coffee shop is you've got to 10x something and you've got
yeah,
to hit 7 or 8 or 9 or 26 figures. But maybe you just need to make $200,000 a year and you could live really well and you don't have to kill yourself, you know?
yeah, and I'm, really big at this life stage, although I will say that was not true of me earlier in my consulting firm where every day was like, we're going to kill it. We're going to kill it literally. And we're going to raise boatloads of money for our clients. And we are going to be, the biggest, the baddest, and all of that kind of thing. I think now it's more, and you and I have chatted a little bit about this, it's a little bit more about what's the social impact
Yeah.
that we want to have. And that becomes, at least for me, even, more important than money. Although I always think it's important for all women to talk about money.
Mhm.
I think it's important for all of us to understand our value and to not be and not succumb to the narrative that says, well, you don't need that much money or
Mhm.
that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I didn't mean it like that. I just meant, like, be realistic about,
Mhm.
I mean, to have to 10x something or to launch a seven-figure business, it requires a certain amount of output.
Right.
Do you wanna do that?
And some of us don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
That was really important. I mean, I've got to say it was really important to me earlier on. And now it's sort of like, no, I want to do things that inspire other people, have social impact, and that I enjoy doing. I mean, you and I have talked about anti-bucket list. I'm
Yeah.
a huge believer, and I actually counsel women who are in my consulting course, make a list of the things you never want to do again.
Yeah.
And make sure that you are not building a business that requires you to do those things, right? Because then you're building a boat that, you're gonna want the life raft on so you can get on it yourself and,
And,
row away.
that's real, and I'm still dealing with that because I'm making a lot of changes in my business,
Yeah,
and, I'm reevaluating everything that I do, and
yeah,
there's a certain portion of it that is just work I don't wanna do, and, like, how do I structure that?
yeah,
And so I'm dealing with that every day, and quite honestly, AI has been a great partner with that
yeah.
because I just go in and say, "This is what I'm being challenged with, give me a boundary."
Boundaries, stop sign, don't do it, don't do it, yeah. That, no, I have a list, and sometimes I need to remind myself. So, and part of my list is the things I'll never do, and then I have
Yeah,
another card, kind of a giant Post-it that says, "Before I say yes to something, will I wanna do this if it was going to happen tomorrow?" And if
nice.
the answer is no, then I'm like, "Okay, probably not," you know?
Yeah, my little mantra is, "Well, it's gotta be done, it doesn't have to be me."
That's a good one. I'm gonna borrow that, Donna. I'm gonna borrow that. But
Yeah, I mean, we
that's
don't
why
have
I
to
was an
do
absolutely yes to this. I was like, "Oh, talk with Donna? Absolutely, yeah."
but I mean, but that's part of it too. As women, we're conditioned that we have to do everything just because it comes in our path.
Right.
And, we have to remind ourselves, and it becomes, it becomes, front and center again
Mhm.
when we're building something new at
Right.
this stage of life. So
Yeah.
things that we might not had to have had to exercise that boundary muscle for a while, it's gonna come up again, and, like, how are we gonna deal with it now?
Yeah.
I mean, 'cause, if we dealt with that 20 years ago or 15 years ago, we were in a totally different place in life. We had different extenuating circumstances.
Yeah.
But now, like, how do we do that? Do we want to do that? Maybe we wanna do it, maybe we don't, but, I mean, it's something to really think about.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. One of the most profound books I read, what I think it was called 4,000 Weeks or something, but it was basically, from the time you're born, if you live to the age of 80, you've got roughly about 4,000 weeks. So I did a quick back of napkin calculation, figured out the number of weeks I might have left, and I was
Mhm.
like, "Okay." It makes it so much easier to say no, but by saying no, it really frees up the time to devote your time to the things you really wanna do,
Yeah.
which for you, the real 50 over 50. For me right now, it's preaching the message of build your own boat.
Yeah, and like, this whole thing was not planned. I mean, this just came as a
Yeah,
little gift, and I had no idea what I was gonna do with it, and it took me a long time to recognize how it aligned with the work that I was doing, because in my mind, they were just 2 separate things,
yeah.
and, but now they're all coming together into one, and it feels really good,
Isn't
and
it lovely when that happens?
it
It's
it
just
was
like,
so well,
"Whoa."
I was so afraid of it because, like, this to me, it was a gift to me, I want it to be a gift for everybody else, that's how I
Yep,
feel about it, but it is so intrinsically tied to the work that I do, I
yeah,
can't possibly keep them apart, and, I had to figure out a way to bring my self-value into this and, my value as a business owner, not as a
right.
host, and, it was a little sticky for a bit.
Yeah. Well, but they always are, I mean, to me, having been in business for a really long time, stuff gets messy. You work your way through it, you figure it out, and you either say, "Good thing, wanna keep doing that, wanna do more of that," or, that is so getting off the table, we are not doing that again," right? So, sometimes I feel like, life and entrepreneurship is just one huge beta experiment, so
It is, but that's what keeps it fun, isn't it?
right. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's never a boring day. I love to it's like, when I sit down at my desk first thing in the morning, I think about, "Okay, when I get up from this desk at the end of the day, what's gonna be different?
Yeah.
What's gonna be the thing that happens today that just totally creates something different in my world?" And you know what? In 20 years, there's been something every single day.
I love that question, though, to deliberately think about that. Think of how much more powerful that is than looking at your to-do list and going, "Yup, yup, yup, gonna do that, that." I love that question
Yeah,
instead.
I there's so much out there. I mean, I spent so many years of my life just, like, living in six-minute increments in a law firm. And, the fact that I get to do this and I don't have to wear shoes and I'm, like, in my home, I'm so
Yeah,
thankful every single day.
too funny,
Uh,
too funny. Yeah, I
I
know.
have 2 questions for you. 2
Yeah.
questions. One is, um what would make you, with this new build your own boat venture that you're launching, what would make you incredibly happy in, like, the 3 to 6 month phase of where this might be or the impact it might have?
Um, can I say my tomorrow morning first? My tomorrow morning, if the
Ab
5 if the 5 episodes that I've scheduled actually go live, that will be a huge success. That's
And
my
if they don't, it'll be another podcast episode.
That's why I'm like, fingers crossed. I'm like, I think I did all the right things, but I want to see that they actually launch tomorrow. That would be one. No, in all seriousness, in 6 months, by the end of the year, what I want to do is roll up these stories with my own experiences and put it in a book, Build Your
Mhm.
Own Boat, which is basically the stories and the lessons, not only from the women I've interviewed, but also my own experiences with entrepreneurship. So I want it to be a book and workbook, and I just want it to be out there in the world so that women who feel like they are stuck either in something that they don't love doing at this life stage, or who are being pushed out of work. And
Yeah.
we know that I you and I both love using AI, and we also know that all the predictions are that AI is going to affect women occupied occupations more than men. And so if women are feeling like they've been pushed out or have been pushed out, that they know that there's an alternative, but they also this book will be instructions, but it'll also be stories that inspire people who look and say, okay, I can do that. They'll see themselves. And that's why I'm trying to interview a variety of women, a variety of different kind of business types and that kind of thing. So that would be wildly successful. But right now I can't think about 6 months. I am literally thinking about tomorrow morning, are these things really going to go live, even though I've scheduled them on all the podcast platforms. So
Well, if you want me to look at anything just for a second set of eyeballs, I'm happy to.
I will do that. I will do that. Be careful what you ask for.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. You know what? We have a shared mission here, my friends.
We have a shared mission. I also understand we have a shared strengths from Strength Finder. That was
We
hilarious.
do. I have them. Look, can you see them?
Yeah. Yeah, strategic activator, ideation, maximizer, futuristic. So my top two are futuristic and activator. And the teams at my consulting firm used to say she's seeing a vision for the future and she wants to know why we didn't do it yesterday. So yeah. I'm kind of feeling that way about this project. I see this vision where women in midlife and beyond we all have our own boats, right? So we're going to be okay financially. And I do want it to have happened yesterday. So that's futuristic and activator working together.
It will happen as it happens. And no matter how much you want it to be yesterday, it's not your timeline.
I know. I used
That's
to say, patience is not a virtue until people told me that wasn't a good thing to say. So I stopped.
Yeah, you know what? It's not one of mine either. Okay, so my last question for you is I wrap up these interviews asking for a wisdom bomb. You've been dropping them for the last half hour, but I'm sure you have one more inside.
So I wish it was my quote, but it's not. But it's something I truly, truly try to live by. And it was the poet Raymond Williams who said, "To be truly radical is to make hope possible instead of despair convincing." And I feel like very often now that people are feeling a lot of despair. And I think part of my work, I know part of your work, is to make not just hope possible, but provide real. That's why I'm calling that's why my company is called Encore Roadmap, but this particular project is called Build Your Own Boat. And I think by building our own boats, and sharing the work that you do, Donna, and that I do, hopefully we are making hope possible. How's that?
I don't want to believe anything other than that.
Okay.
On that note, please connect with Janine. Her business website is encoreroadmap.com. She's also very active on LinkedIn, and her new Substack, go over there and subscribe, is buildyourownboat.substack.com, and go catch my interview tomorrow with 4 more, because they will just post seamlessly, no problems.
Thank you. Somehow the magic of the universe is going to work. Donna, thank you so much for having me. And yeah, I can't wait to share your interview because I think it's really going to inspire a lot of people. So thank you.
I hope so. And I'm just so honored and happy and excited to be connected with you and know that our work can intertwine in so many different ways to help more people.
You bet. You
So
bet.
Thank you. And we will be back next week with the very first man on the Real 50 Over 50. And he is an ally and has interviewed over 800 women. So he's earned his space. Anyway, if you have any comments, questions, anything on the replay, just tag us and we will come back and keep the conversation going. And have a great Wednesday, everybody. And Janine, thank you so much.
Donna, thank you. Appreciate all that you're doing.